If a person thinks they will fail, they tend to perform worse, even though they actually have the skills. So if you have the skills to do something, if you feel like you'll do crappy, you will do crappier in relation to your level of skill. Self-efficacy belief estimates your skill in handling some task. Now, a specific belief tied to that specific task versus some general belief about yourself. A self-efficacy belief has to do with a specific task. So a self-efficacy belief can influence whether you start a plan, change a plan, whether you continue it or not, and you can also improve your self-efficacy. So these things make a very big difference. Let's talk about it.
Pay attention.
Now, when I talk about self-efficacy, I love to bring up weightlifting, less because of my bias towards lifting weights and more because it really does present in my opinion, the single best sort of case study to explain how self-efficacy works, or rather the phenomena. So while coaching Olympic teams over in Azerbaijan for the Rio Olympics, I observed and trained with hundreds of freaks, just freak athletes. The staff and the athletes had both complained about stagnating, and a good portion of the athletes went months, some of them years at a standstill in the gym, okay, seeing nothing. Depending on the situation, this could mean getting cut from the team, especially in that part of the world. Other things might get cut off too. So they decided, of course, to get all new equipment because that obviously makes the difference. And although at the time, young, more angry me, or at least more externally angry me, rather scoffed at the idea of getting all new stuff to make yourself better. Although it ended up leading to an idea of its own. So powerlifters back home in the United States, okay, they use powerlifting specific barbells for squatting, etc. So I added my suggestions to the list. In the meantime, I gathered data about the athlete's performance in the weight room. So a few weeks later, the equipment arrived, and it would take a long time to set up all those machines and all that other crap they ended up getting. You have to assemble all the racks, etc., etc. It would take a long time to set it up, but I could dig through the shipment and find my powerlifting specific bars, and we could train with them that day. Turns out the athletes loved the new bars.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Extra shiny, of course. Deep knurling for better grip. If you've ever felt a new barbell, it feels like a cheese grater. And as a meathead, if you like grab into our barbell and you think, this will rip my hands off, like you automatically love it, okay? Automatic. So the deep knurling gives a better grip. The fancy logos on the side, amazing, obviously. And then the extra stiffness in the sort of bar makes squatting feel much safer. However, okay, many of the athletes felt disappointed.
What?
They even criticized me with what rather Russian I understood. These Russian is the common language. They criticized me because their performance stayed the same. And some of the staff also made fun of me too. I knew enough Russian to tell, although body language ends up, they did a bad job at hiding that, or a good job at showing it, I guess. This kind of like, okay, as if swapping the barbells changes how much you can lift.
Damn.
Well, it turns out it did. The standard bar weighs 45 pounds, and I got 50-pound bars. 100% of the athletes in this little study, more than 50 of them set personal records that day. 100% of them. So they all lifted what they believed they could lift. They also believed they lifted less than they did. And so for just about anything we do or plan to do, we have a little meter inside our heads gauging our chances of succeeding. If the meter rates higher, well, you have a larger chance of succeeding. If the meter rates lower, you have a smaller chance of succeeding, just based on how you describe the situation. Albert Bandura, one of the most regarded psychologists of the 20th century, championed the research on this phenomena, coining it self-efficacy. The estimation of your success in some specific task represents your self-efficacy for that specific thing. When you have a strong belief about your efficacy for preparing and sticking to your food portions on the weekends, then you will try harder, stay focused longer, and tolerate more frustration, and rebound faster when you goop. When you have a weak belief about your efficacy for sticking to your food portions on the weekends, and you'll victimize yourself more when you goof, give yourself permission to screw up in advance. I know I'll mess all this stuff up anyway. Start avoiding it and make yourself emotional much faster and with greater intensity when you encounter hassles. A mountain, I bet if you printed it out, just like a mountain of research shows that if people believe they can change some target behavior, even a difficult one, they have a greater chance of doing it. If a person thinks they will do bad or fail, even if they have the skill to perform well, they will perform worse. We'll drill that in over and over. For that reason, the belief about whether you will succeed at a task influences whether you start it, avoid it, press on, or give up.
I give up.
For example, the chances of you starting up and sticking to a nutrition program depends on your self-efficacy beliefs about planning and making time, cooking and preparing meals in bulk, eating regular meals in regular portions in a regular pattern, saying yes to yourself, even when you want to snack or go overboard, and staying assertive. Your self-efficacy beliefs about staying assertive when people push food on you, saying yes to yourself, we call it. So we have good news though, okay? So a lot of people think this, like once you sort of have that set belief about yourself, it gets set. We even use that language in regular conversation. You can change it though. You can 100% improve your efficacy. So when you practice behaviors crucial to progressing toward your goal, then your belief you can accomplish the goal goes up. It strengthens. Weight loss provides an amazing example of this. So I'd like to talk about Perry C. He asked me to hide his last name, so I'll use the first letter of his last name because I like to act rebellious like that. So Perry C provides an amazing example of this. He started out at 240 pounds. Okay. And his physician gave him a goal weight of 180 pounds. He told me he gave the doctor the middle finger and stormed out. Can you imagine why? He acted pretty cranky sometimes. Cranky old coot. He calls himself that, so I say it too. Okay. Gave him the middle finger and stormed out. What chance does he have of losing 60 pounds at 60 plus? His language. What chance do I have of losing 60 pounds at 60 plus? Perry says. So we shoot for 15. The 15 pounds actually came off in a couple of months with some work, but it came off. That 15 pounds also made a big enough difference in his blood work that he could, and his other vitals, by the way, like blood pressure, etc. Okay. So it made a big enough difference in his blood work and his vitals that he could come off one of his medications and actually took him out of that pre-diabetes category. Then Perry said, okay, Kashey, I'll bite. I can just keep doing the shit I've been doing all along. He said, I screw up once in a while. I screw up a lot, but I remembered what happened when I went to the doctor, okay? And I thought I was totally useless then, and I made this progress here now, and I've learned way more since then, so I know if I could do it then, I can still do it now. Summarizing this very long, angry rant he did. Doctor said I couldn't do anything, etc., etc. You know, that whole, we do that a lot. So he realized that at his lamest, he could still make legitimate progress enough to improve his health. And he has made significant progress since then, so that when he goofs, he can see this discrepancy and hop right back on. So Perry says, when I screw up, I think of that and it gets me back on fast. So Perry set up the reasonable and challenging goal he had a good feeling he could reach. Some percentage chance that he could do it. Just by focusing on simple behaviors, he hit the goal on accident, which we'll get to in a second. So once he accomplished that, he had all the proof that he needed to keep going. His efficacy skyrocketed. Once he realized he could do that, his efficacy skyrocketed. So instead of Perry obsessing over whether he could hit 180, he would tell himself, I can do now what I did then. I've got proof. So he set himself up to get away from obsessing over the goal focus and mastering the important skills that got him here or there at the time. So since he had his skills tight, he lost his next 15 a few weeks faster than he lost his first 15. And then the rest goes down in history. So even if you believe you can do it though, even if you have really high self-efficacy, you'll still run into hassles. You'll still run into challenges and other problems. However, if your efficacy influences how hard you try, how creative you get when you run into problems, and how long you will stick to it, even when you feel hassled, stressed, stuck, etc. And for that reason, your efficacy has a really strong influence on your discipline. If you think you can do it, then you will put the instant gratification aside and focus on making yourself better. And when you make yourself better, what you want happens as a side effect.